The more I do it, the more I learn what healing really is.
We can be in partnership with our bodies because our bodies are always listening to us.
Oh my goodness. Welcome everyone to the Autoimmune Hour. I have to laugh here because we're in the middle of a conversation with my dear friend Pamela Sylvan. And I said, let's hit record. This is fabulous. I wish it could have been on the first 10 or 15 minutes of our conversation, just catching up. But let's jump right in into the middle of this. But I want to introduce to you, if you're not aware of Pamela, she's been on our show numerous times over the past decade. Let me give you a quick read of her bio, and then we'll jump right into that conversation where I said, dear, we're hitting record. Pamela Sylvan is a highly accomplished professional, and she primarily works with women in midlife who are not done yet. Let's see, her latest book was called Soul Food, and then the book before that was 80 Things Not to Give a Flying Fig About and What to Do Instead. I think that's the title of that one. And she has a book that she's in the middle of writing right now called The Big Bang, and it's all about transition and what to do with your life when you get past menopause. You get to that place, what to do with your life. So let's jump in and enjoy the rest of Pamela's and my conversation that we were just having over tea. So see you on the other side. Okay, we're recording. I I wanted to record this because this is really juicy stuff.
Let's go from here. Let's talk about this time in a woman's life where she's ready and she's not quite sure what she's ready for. She's ready to start making those decisions because we look in the mirror every day and something's always changing. Our hair, we got some silver hair going on. Everything about us is saying life is no longer the same. We can lament about that, ruminate about that, hang on to past dreams, try to hang on to useful days, but that's not what this is about. There's a reason a woman goes into menopause. Something is pausing. So she can then leave this point and then venture into the next phase of her life. And I think in our culture, we've been trained to look at this time as one of great crisis and sadness and lament and rumination. And we look at ourselves as old fodder somehow. We're trying to be shelved. Our sexual currency is over. What are we good for? And I don't think we've ever pulled ourselves out of that part of this conversation properly because we're stuck on the whole menopause thing. And there's sure, if there are issues around your body function, sure, go and get that checked out, look after, of course. Right? What is that next conversation? Because I didn't have any of these issues. I get the occasional hot flash, but what do I do with this time? I even look at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, look at me. I look just like my mother now.
I know what you mean with that one.
My mother did. She had cut her hair short and it was graying and everything. I said, "Okay." Now, as a model, my mother modeled what it was to be in her 60s. What do I do with that? Do I go the way of her and my grandmother? Or do I forge a new path for myself? And I said, of course I forge a new path for myself. It's not just the time to sit around. How can that be based on the energy levels I still have, based on the creativity still flowing through me, based on the vision I have for my future, just based on a whole lot of things. It's not the time to stop doing anything in particular. All that's different is what I'm now choosing to do with the pot of time before me. And I don't think it's a time most women have given themselves a really good sit down and a really good deep dive into the question or questions for themselves. And as someone that sits with women during this time and asks those pivotal questions, sometimes questions they've never either had the wherewithal to ask or were too afraid to ask, it is a time to now start a new beginning, but the beginning is more powerful because you are beginning with experience. You're beginning with wisdom. You're beginning with so much more than you had when you were younger. This is an exciting time.
I want to say, referencing back to, let's see, 2 books ago,
Mhm.
80 Things Not to Give a Flying Fig About and What to Do Instead, if
Mhm.
I remember the title correctly. Trying to think about that.
That's excellent. But sometimes I got to think, what's that book called again?
But one of the things about this time of life, and whether you've got a diagnosis or not, I get that. But I the friends that are in the same time as I am or thereabouts are about finally giving themselves permission to break out of expected norms or societal norms, whatever you want to call it. And I'm really beginning to see this deep intensity in friends that I guess we always knew was there, but now all of a sudden they're just not even asking permission, not like they ever had to, but a lot of them kind of felt that way, uh, giving themselves permission to just do what they want to do. I remember a line from Michael Gurian's book, The Wonder of Aging. It's one of the opening lines. And Michael, I'm paraphrasing. So sorry. But it's aging is when it's the moment you realize the road ahead is shorter than the road behind. And that just stuck with me. Okay, if I've got all these big dreams that I put on hold to do some societal norms, mother, all of that kind of stuff, not regretting any of it, not regretting it at all. But now that the kids are grown and on their own, I've got time and given myself permission to
Mm,
chase those dreams.
absolutely. And this is what I want women to get excited about. Guess what? You've landed in Candyland. And no one's ever explained that to us this way. It's always been this downturn. Now, granted, there are women that are going to have energy deficiencies and health concerns and all manner of things that happen. They've experienced loss either through divorce or death, job situations. There's a plethora of things that can and will happen. This is life we're living. But it also means something totally different as well that we really, as a society and one that is very use obsessed, don't really talk about. Women, especially women, have been moved aside to make room for the younger ones coming through, which was more, we've given more credence to the younger ones because they are still in baby making mode. And we put a lot of energy into that, and nothing wrong with that. But we, as the grandmothers, we, as that sage woman, which is a term I use a lot in my practice, is that accumulation of wisdom and experience that we are now given the responsibility to now move to the younger generations coming up. There are indigenous societies where the sage woman is the most hailed person in the community because she holds the information of generations gone by. She holds healing and healing wisdom. She holds a particular timeline. I remember when my grandmother, anytime somebody got sick, you would go to her for information about something because there's something she remembered that she can share with you that you have no knowledge about. So the grandmothers are responsible for passing along great important information. The sage woman are that sort of group or monolith of women, if they so want to call themselves that or take that responsibility on, is responsible for really great self-care of self because we need you to stay in the game a lot longer, in the game of gathering your wisdom together and doing something with it, something small, something in the middle, or something great. It all depends on where you choose to plug yourself into. But this is a time of the awakening. The menopause came to stop that particular function in your life as a female. Now the awakening starts, the awakening to the power, I would call it. And that's how I feel about my life right now. I've awoken to something greater than myself, and I'm using that energy. I'm using that force. I'm using that knowledge to write books. The words just keep tumbling through my brain. So it's now for me to sit down and manifest that. But there are so many things that is coming through for women our age. It's just for us to say, okay, let me take time in the silence to listen to it, accept the mission, and move it forward.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, part of this reminds me of your latest book, but I know you're writing a new book too. So just keeping them all straight here, Pamela. Soul food.
Oh,
I want to throw in that conversation about soul food because I think giving ourselves permission is the first step.
Yeah.
And not expecting other people to give us permission. And I know we've talked previously about not everybody will understand,
No,
and that's okay. That's that's
absolutely.
okay. I
Absolutely.
I think that's important for people to know. And it's so funny that you talk about the words are coming out of you with your books and things like that, and your new adventures too. And
Mm.
for me, I know part of our 500 plus episodes. And what is so exciting for me, it's almost first off, I didn't think we'd hit that number.
Congratulations. Such a huge milestone.
Thank you. But we're coming up on, over starting our 11th year as well, which is another thing I didn't think I'd be doing the podcast that long either. But the more I do it, the more I learn what healing really is. When I first started the show, it was all about medical doctors, the actual
Okay.
medical part of it.
Yeah, the mechanics of healing.
The
Yeah.
mechanics of healing, and I found some more sort of hidden mechanics of healing so on this journey, which is amazing to me. But the progression has been to really seeing the part that our emotional environment, our mental environment, our spiritual environment especially
Mm.
play into healing. And I'm just
Like,
passionate about continuing to give those ideas of giving ourselves permission to explore, to believe, to try new things do maybe something that we've put on hold. I
mm,
know a lot of women, including myself, put things on hold over the times. And that's what is so important to me. And I know is to you. And that's what I love about every time I find Pamela. It's like, where in the world is Pamela?
I'm like Waldo. Where's Waldo?
Much better looking.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But yes, to your point, Sharon, there will be those women that will look at a particular type of woman and say, there might be two things they say. One, where does she get that chutzpah to go out and do that thing? And then there will be the women that will look at this in horror and run and flee into the night. And there's the third woman, which I will put you in there as well. I'll slot you in there with me. That woman that sees the opportunity and takes it. The opportunity to really flow and fall into her potential fully because she now has the time and she has the experience and she has resources to follow through on that. I'm at a time of my life right now where I've made a decision about something just recently, as a matter of fact. I love the fact that I've been a creator for a long time and I can say, oh, I have these books and I've got more of these things happening around me. But I can check mark a few things. I have this, I have that, I have that. I have myself fully. I have time, I have space. I'm mobile. I'm relatively healthy. So what impossible or near impossible thing can I stretch myself to? Now,
Hmm.
I
Now
might
you've intrigued me.
yeah, I might outlive the vision. The vision might outlive me. There's chances that the vision might outlive me, but it's not about that. What impossible thing, based on everything I have at my disposal, my resources, whether it be health or anything else, and I throw fully at this impossible thing or nearly impossible thing and go? Because here's what I know for certain. For certain, it will change me. I don't know if I'll ever reach it. I don't know if I'll ever accomplish it, and that's not even the point here anymore. The point is, am I gonna set out on that path and allow it to change me? And my answer is yes, I accept the mission. And even the fact that it even fell into my brain meant it was something for me to go do.
I love that. Accepting that things fall into your brain and honoring them is not that always that easy to do.
Of course not. Of course not. Because again, we live in a society that has certain parameters of engagement, and we've all agreed on the rules to a certain degree. But at this age, we are allowed to unplug from a lot of that. And to a certain degree, society allows us to unplug, especially as women. Men at this stage are still somewhat fully in the game of doing what they do as men in the world. But we women are given a little bit of a break, and we resent that, and I'm thinking, "Oh, no, they think you're invisible? Perfect. Good
Run with it.
for you." What? They don't look at me anymore? Good. So I can go do what I have to do without worrying about everybody staring at me. To me, it's a superpower and a superpower of invisibility. And you can turn that on and off, by the way. You can become invisible one day, the next day, people are staring at you based on how you choose to show up.
Absolutely.
So there is no, "Oh, I'm now 60, I'm now 70, whatever." No. Use your gifts of this time and go full out. Play full out. Laugh full out. This is so much full out you can do. Everybody has different levels of potential. What I wanna do and call impossible might be nothing for somebody else, or it might be really crazy for somebody else. It all depends. This is just what it is for me to stretch myself to go do, and that's all I really ask people, just to write it down. You don't have to do it, but at least dream it. A lot of people are even unwilling to do that. Just dream it. Look at it. See if it's something you want to play with, something you want to consider. And then the minute you say yes to it, all of a sudden the help starts to show up from seemingly nowhere.
Isn't that amazing? I found that, and the older I get, the more it happens because I'm
Yes.
open to it.
Yep.
I'm it's almost the more you open to that concept, the more shows up. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. But until you give yourself permission to be in that space, it's just a fairy tale.
Yeah. But I see that about even my wellness journey. The more I opened up to understanding that it wasn't just, as I mentioned a minute ago, about the physical health, the more health showed up. It was fascinating to me. And the more help showed up. That's
The
when
more
the
help.
team that I have now, which are 5 amazing people,
Mhm.
that keep me, you know, on we work together as a team, and I love that, and it keeps me going, and it keeps me enthused and excited and all that kind of stuff, and
Mhm.
I love that they are there to guide me and to give me information that I need about what is wellness, and having that reframed for me was really important. So,
Oh,
what Pamela and I are talking about, it doesn't matter where you are on your wellness journey. There's always more to dream, there's always more to be, and there's always more to do. And the one thing I love about aging, and taking from the title of your other book, is I really don't get a flying pig. That's it. People can say whatever they want to say.
that's
It's
right.
not about me, whatever.
And I captured 80 in that book, and there's just so much more, but I thought I should cut it off here. 80 was a good number. But the point of it is we have the ability to pay attention to these things or not. And because we are paying so much attention to the things that we don't want to pay attention to because it doesn't make us feel good or we're just ruminated over it, we create more of it. We have that ability to create that which we put our mind on. That's a good news, bad news proposition, by the way.
I think especially if we dwell on our health too much
Mhm.
and saying, I can't do that, and everything is a not, that manifests as well as when I'm saying, I like to say sometimes, maybe I'll say, not right today or not yet, but trying to take away all the knots because I never know.
Absolutely. And there's so much experiments that you can try with yourself. There's a part of the book I'm writing right now. It's called The Rebel Lab. And the Rebel Lab is an opportunity for you to truly experience yourself and the choices that you're making at any given time and to see how you are actually orchestrating what's happening in your life. And one of the things I love doing is if anything happens physically to me, a headache arrives, some inconvenient thing comes about, I say, there's that moment where you immediately get irritated about it, or maybe even frightened about it, depending on what's happening with you. And then I pull myself back from that and I say, remember. That's my sort of trigger word, remember. And what I'm remembering is that a co-creator with life. I've already made this deal with life that I'm going to work with you and you're going to work with me and we're going to do what we need to do to open up the way. when I remember that, this is what soul food was about. Well, everyone's trying to keep track of these books that are going back and forth, but in soul food, it's a book about declarations and how to use the power of your word. And as Louise Hay back in her day introduced us to the power of affirmations and how that became a big thing when she brought it to the forefront. I've gone a step further with what I call declarations and vows. And really dropping into the power of the word. And I use a little bit of scientific approach and background and using neurosciences and so forth to bring the point home. And then the second part of the book is really establishing the words that resonate for you and talking power to yourself at any given point in time. So anytime I make myself remember my co-creative ability, and then I focus that co-creative ability wherever it happens to be on me. Like the other morning, I got up and I said, "Uh-oh," I was dizzy, and then recognized I had something going on with my inner ear. And I thought, "What's this about? I've never felt that before." And I got a little bit of a thing. It's okay. Remember and do what I have to do. Talk to my ear,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I talked to my ear, and I came into resonance with my inner ear, and didn't have any medication for it. Halfway during the day, the thing went. It just
That's
it was done. And then Yuri was asking me, "What about your dizziness?" 'Cause it lasted for a couple of days. And I said, "I don't know. It's gone." And I blessed it. I said, "Well, thanks for the visit." Maybe it was just to remind me of something, and it's gone about its merry way. But this is the point, and a lot of scientists and doctors are now coming to this realization as well. We can be in partnership with our bodies because our bodies are always listening to us. Unfortunately, we're always talking about the downside of things. So we feel it in our bodies, we feel it in our joints, we feel it in our cells. We have the ability to love ourselves up, love ourselves back to wholeness, love ourselves back to joy, love ourselves back to so many different things we want to experience to the point where you get in all of these words that I talk about, you get to a place where you start saying, of course, the inner ear infection is gone.
I just love, of course, it opens up so many possibilities. And
Sure.
not just about the inner ear, but maybe a dream enters your head and you said, I that's something I've wanted to do since I was a child. Of course I can do that now.
Here's the thing about our society. It leaves so many clues about this, and the clues are usually left in fables and fairy tales and things like that. It talks about our ability to work with the natural side of life and nature and so forth. And that's why I love animated movies because they're able to put these little bits of stuff in a way that we will accept without ridiculing it because we think it's fantasy. And I'd never say it as that. We bought a place out in the forest in Nova Scotia on a lake. And one of the things I've recognized since being on this property was how everything had a time and a place. The seasons came and went. There was no rushing around. The squirrels weren't fainting because they didn't have I couldn't find a nut. Everything just went about its business as it was supposed to. And it was all coordinated beautifully, and that's one of the things I notice when I go out in the forest, and I say, "Wow, how beautifully orchestrated you've got everything here." Right? So, I just want people to understand it's all beautifully orchestrated. You've been convinced otherwise because you're looking over here. And even in our great spiritual books, whatever one you wanna pick up, it says, "Look away from the thing that is causing you grief." Because when you are staring it down, giving it all that energy, you're keeping yourself stuck there and recreating more of it. That's why having visions either written or put up, whatever you need to do until it's stuck in here, because this is where the vision, you see it and create it, until you're able to get it in here, write it down.
And I have to, for those listening on audio, she's pointing to her brain. when she says it's all in
Oh,
here.
I keep forgetting that. It's a radio show, but yeah, so I'm pointing to my temple here
But
in
we
between
both
my
do audio and video, guys. So if you haven't joined our YouTube channel yet, go over to Understanding Autoimmune on YouTube and subscribe. And if you're watching us on video, you already know she was pointing to her head, but it's all in there. Wow, Pamela, I just love talking to you. We could go on and on. Thank you so much for sharing everybody. Thank you for being here and listening in, eavesdropping in on our conversation. Sorry you missed the first part of it because that's when I went, oh, this is so juicy. Everybody's got to hear this. So, and it's like I always like to say, have a great week. Whatever your adventures, join me next week for another brand new episode. And if you're over on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. As you can see, we are adding more and more shows to it and not just weekly, like the show is weekly, but we're adding all sorts of little snips and dropping conversations like this, other fabulous things. And look for Understanding Autoimmune over on YouTube and sure and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel and we actually have been growing fabulously. This year, we've continued to grow the YouTube channel really quickly and appreciate people like you who help drive the show's algorithms to let it be around there for more people to find. And we really appreciate you and all the best. Having a fabulous 2025 and hope to see you for numerous more episodes in the coming year. Thanks so much for being with us and have a great week. Whatever your adventures, enjoy.